I'm Emily Bello, and just wanted to take a few minutes to tell you my story about the great care that I received here at Cincinnati Sports Medicine with both the doctors and the physical therapist. So, to give you a little bit of background about myself, I have been doing marathons since 2005. I've done over, I think, 11 or 12 regular marathons now. I've been to Boston a couple of times. I then proceeded to get into kind of ultra distance marathons. So 50 miles, I've done 4 50-mile races. I've won 3 of them for the female division, and then have done 2 100-mile races as well. Back in the winter time, so around January or February of this year, I was deciding that I was training for the 100-mile Keys 100 race between Key Largo and Key West, and had been training for a couple of months and had injured my knee. And I called my insurance provider and said, what would you recommend with this? They said, here's a list of specialists. I did a little bit of research online and decided Dr. Siegel was certainly someone that I would want to come visit. So I came to visit Dr. Siegel. He immediately understood the intensity of my workouts, what I was forcing my body to do and being required to do in order to prepare for the 100-mile run, which was in May. So I was about 10 weeks out from that run at the time that I saw Dr. Siegel, and I said, my knee is hurting so badly that I can't do any of my runs, much less the long distance training that I needed to be doing at the time. Dr. Siegel, in the first visit, within 10 minutes, knew exactly what was the problem with my knee. He worked immediately to fix it, and I only had to go to Dr. Siegel one time and then proceeded to go to physical therapy. And he recommended me, just by luck of the draw, I got Andy Koch here in this therapy division, and I started to form a relationship with Andy also in terms of his understanding my needs with the training and how much training I was doing. So it's a little different when you try to explain to someone, no, I run ultra marathons, because it's not just the typical marathon distance. I'm being required to twice a week run over 25 miles for training at a time in one run. And so Andy immediately started to understand my needs. He worked with me to develop a pretty intense regimen to get my knee back in shape. And within a few weeks, I was back to running normally. I continued to use some of the exercises that Andy had showed me to make sure that the problem did not return. And knock on wood, it hasn't since then. So that was kind of back in the spring. I had an unfortunate accident on July 13th. This time it was on a bike. I was training for the Ironman in Madison, Wisconsin, which was held on September 11th, so July 13th at the time. I was in a regular training ride. It was a Wednesday evening, and I happened to hit train tracks just kind of sideways and flipped over my bike. I ended up busting my collarbone. I still have a pretty nasty battle scar you can see here. I busted it in 7 places. I was rushed to the emergency room via ambulance, and they said you need to get in immediately to see a specialist on this. And my thoughts immediately went to Cincinnati Sports Medicine. So I told my husband I was unable to do it myself, but I said, you need to call first thing in the morning, get me in. They got me in at, I think, 9:30. So immediately upon opening, they rushed to make room for me. And I was directed to, this time, Dr. Hassan, who specialized in shoulders and rotator cuffs in the collarbone area. Dr. Hassan took one look at me and said, your swelling is so bad, we're going to have to wait until Monday to operate on you. So now it's Thursday, and I needed to wait until Monday. That's how severe the injury was. So Monday, he got me into surgery. He had originally planned, actually based on the initial x-rays, it appeared that my bone was only broken in 3 places. Because there was so much swelling, the x-ray couldn't actually get through to see the severity of the break. So his original plan was to put a plate in and a screw to fit the pieces back together. Once he opened me up, he saw that it was not only broken in one main piece here, but it was shattered into 5 additional pieces at the end. So it just is great accolades to Dr. Hassan. He changed his game plan mid-surgery and decided he couldn't put the plate in, so he just put the one screw, and then he stitched the smaller pieces back together. Long story short, he said it was one of the worst breaks that he dealt with, and told me this the next morning. And my first reaction to him was, but I've got an Ironman in 8 weeks. What are we going to do about that? And he said, we need to focus on getting you better first. So let's get you into physical therapy. I went the next day to my first session of physical therapy. Was fitted in the cast. They wanted to immobilize my shoulder area. So I was fitted in the cast, and I said, Dr. Hassan, can I go to Andy? I know Andy. He's worked with me before. He's great. I certainly want to go to Andy. So Dr. Hassan set up a plan for me to start coming to Andy. I also work full-time and go to school, actually drive to Chicago every Saturday to get my MBA from the Northwestern program there. So Andy understood the complexity of my scheduling, and it was going to be difficult to get me in, especially since I couldn't drive at the time. For a couple weeks I was restricted to no driving. So Andy said, well, Emily, I know that you're disciplined. I'm going to set you up with a plan where you only need to come in here once a week, and you do all of these exercises daily, once or twice, or maybe 3 times if you can, on your own. So the level of trust there, knowing that I would do them on my own, and making a flexible plan that would allow me to do that and not place the burden on my husband of continuing to drive me here, was very helpful. It was something, it certainly meant a lot to me. It was helpful in my situation. It showed that they really understood that you can't always make the time to come in here as many times as you need to get your exercises done. So worked with Andy. Probably every once a week, I was emailing him outside of our session saying, do you think the Ironman is possible? Every 10 days, I was coming back to Dr. Hassan to get x-rays and see the progression. So about 2 weeks before, Dr. Hassan let me get back to running. And during the time prior to getting back to running, I was biking one-armed on my bike in the living room and working this out with Dr. Hassan, saying, I want you to know this is still on my agenda to do the Ironman. He, I think, thought that I was a little crazy at first, and then he succumbed to my insistent stubbornness, we could call it, and said, all right, well, I will work with you as if we're headed there, and we'll see what we can do. So 2 to 3 weeks before, he let me start running. So now I'm about 5 weeks out from surgery. He let me start running on the treadmill. I just had to prop my arm up on the crossbar of the treadmill to make sure that it was immobilized, and started to run again. And then about a week before, he released me to swim again. So I, until that time, had just been swimming one-armed in the pool, trying to immobilize my left arm. And then about a week before the Ironman, he took my last set of x-rays and said, it's a miracle, I don't know how it happened, but you are completely ready, and I give you the okay to go ahead with the Ironman, but I want to see you the week after, make sure nothing's changed, nothing has shifted in your bone, but good luck. And by the wonderful help of Dr. Hassan and Andy, and by the grace of God, I was able to go on September 11th and compete in the Madison Ironman. This was exactly 7 weeks and 6 days after my surgery, and just was so excited that I could work with the team here to get myself better, and to do this thing that I'd prepared for so long, invested so much time, money, energy, concern in. And the fact that the team here really supported that and knew how much it meant to me and worked to get me there is just more testimony than I could ever give. When asked, would you recommend others go there? Hands down, I can't imagine ever going anywhere else for physical therapy needs or orthopedic sports medicine type needs. So I'm certainly hooked for life, so hopefully I can continue to do my activities forever. You never want to get injured, but I do know at least that I have a home to go to if I do, and that they'll get me back on my feet, do everything they can to do so.